Hey, folks, this is Aaron Hafel doing the Patreon podcast for the Lift. And today, my guest is guitar player Chris Duarte, who's also going to be playing later tonight. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Aaron. Thanks you for having me. And thank you for pronouncing your name correctly, because I was saying it awkwardly as Heffel.
You're not the first person. That is absolutely okay, and that's how it looks sometimes. So it's I don't get too broke up about it. What I wanted to start with was looking at your bio. Did you grow up in San Antonio?
Yeah, up to my 16th year, and then that's when I left high school and I moved to Austin because everybody was talking about Austin being a music town. And at the time, I had just picked up guitar, like maybe about a year or two before that, and I was starting to play in bands. And I realized I could pick stuff up really quick. You know, somebody was showing the chords. I could read the Beatles books, all those books stuff. It was real easy for me to read the chord changes above the words. Mm-hmm. And so when I try to show somebody something, it like took them all this time to learn. I was like, man, I just showed you the chords. This is how you do it.
I'm one of those people. It would take me a minute.
And so then the light bulb went off. Maybe I got something here, So that's why I decided, I dropped out of school, which I don't advise that for anybody. Stay in school, get an education, but I worked really hard at it, and, I managed to make a living out of it.
Was the home life prior to moving to Austin, was it a musical, or was it kind of just like picking stuff up on the radio, or?
No, it wasn't really musical. I mean, my brother listened to a lot of records, so mainly he inspired me a lot because he was always listening to records and stuff.
Like the blues, or was he kind of just?
No, we were listening to the current rock and stuff.
Sure.
San Antonio at the time, back in the 70s, it was like really a metal town. A lot of Black Sabbath, but Rush was a real big group.
Van Halen, I'm sure, was coming up.
Yeah, Van Halen.
Yeah.
I saw them on their first tour and everything.
Oh my God.
I saw a bunch of Anyway, yes, I'm that old. But I mean, I would listen to it. Then we started getting, to me though, when I moved to Austin, I didn't know what real blues was.
Sure.
To me, it was like AC/DC's The Jack. I got The Jack, That was the blues to me. I didn't know really about Muddy, although Muddy had that big album in the late 70s when he was touring with, Johnny Winter produced
that trio of records King Bee and,
right.
Yep.
Mannish Boy. It was
I'm Ready,
a
and
big hit back in the late 70s.
Sure.
Johnny Winter produced that record. But, when I got into a blues band, then I had to start learning the Freddie King, the B.B. King, all the Kings.
Oh yeah, the Texas.
Yeah, exactly. All the Texas cats, all the Chicago guys, all the Mississippi cats, learning all that stuff.
Did you find yourself at Antone's pretty quick, or?
No, I was actually in a jazz band first. I was trying to be I wanted to be a jazz player because before I moved to Austin, I was really heavy into prog rock.
Yeah, okay.
So I was like heavy into Yes.
Genesis.
Genesis. But I mean, Steve Howe was like one of my favorite players. And then right before I moved, I had heard Al Di Meola's Land of the Midnight Sun, which I think is his first solo record after Romantic Warrior. The band with Chick Corea, Return to Forever.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my God, I want to be like this, And then Holdsworth, I heard Holdsworth and stuff. So I started trying to be like that. So I got in a straight ahead band first, and I could read chord charts and stuff like that. I had the real book. Everybody had the real. That's when you had to go into a store and say, yeah, give me 2 sets of strings, some picks, and you got any real books down under
right,
the counter?
Yep.
They were sold under the counter,
So you're saying it like kind of straight ahead, straight ahead jazz, or were you doing fusion?
Well, I was also doing fusion too, because I was playing a lot of Holdsworth songs, and some Di Meola songs, trying to play a lot of Yes songs. I used to play a bunch of Yes songs, but I was trying to play all those cats, and who else was I doing, emulating and stuff? But I mean, all the, then when Mike Stern came out with Miles, the Man with the Horn, I was blown away by him. But anyway, I mean, and when I was reading out the real book, I remember the Flugelhornist was telling me, because he'd have a set list, but he'd change, and I have to go through my charts and, get it all arranged. He was like, you really got to get your charts together. So I was like, well, we do 30 songs. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to remember all these songs. So I went through and memorized all the songs. It's like, you call out the song, I'm ready to go.
Nice.
even in switch keys. I mean, there were some songs with long forms like "Check It a Sunday" or something like that. That's like got 2 or 3 pages. Got it, Latin
but you were looking to be pro. I mean, you're trying to do the thing.
That was my goal, to be the best guitar player in the world when I got to Austin. And that meant covering all the bodies. I wanted to be like a studio player.
Yep.
I never got to learn how to read proficiently, but I can read those chord charts and I can sight read okay. It's not great, but I mean that's what I was doing a lot. Doing the real book.
So you're doing that, and then obviously something happens.
Yeah. So I know these guys playing down. We're playing at this club called the Austex Lounge a lot. And it's now called the Magnolia Cafe on South Congress, but it was called the Austex Lounge. And I was going down with my friends that I had met, a drummer, and we'd play some of our songs, but then we'd have Bobby Mack come in. I got to know him, and we were, he was playing blues, and then he needed a guitar player, and he liked what I was doing, but he was like, you've got this jazz sort of rock thing. I really need you to be blues. So he started saying, okay, here's a Freddie King solo. I want you to learn it note for note. Here's some Wolf stuff. Learn it note for note.
Wow.
Because when I started playing it, because I had like this snobbish attitude towards blues. Like, come on, blues. 1, 4, 5.
Of course I can do that.
Come on.
Yeah.
Give me that 3, no 3, 6, 2, 5 in there. Come on, man. Flat 5s and stuff. Come on. But then when I started playing, I knew instantly I didn't sound anything like the records. I didn't have the sincerity or the real touch. It was like, I've got my homework, man.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to convey the true feeling of the blues, I've got to start working on the stuff.
I think it's a tough thing that a lot of people who quote unquote play the blues have an issue, or they like that is maybe the biggest stumbling block is to figure out the feel, figure out.
Yeah, I mean, just that certain swing it's got to it and that certain vibe. Hey, it's cool. I know it's the everyman sort of music. It's easily accessible to everybody. But if you want to take it to that real higher level and be like those cats, you've got to work on your craft, man. And that's what I did. I really worked. And so he let me in. So I was 17 when he hired me on that band.
Wow.
And so we started touring Texas and stuff, and I was really, taking it to heart. I was learning because I wanted to be good.
Were you the only guitar player in the band?
No, I was the other guitar player.
Okay.
I was the rhythm player, but I would do the solos. He'd always pass me a solo.
Sure. Okay. What brings you to form your first band?
The first band, what I think is really important, I'm glad you asked that question. A lot of cats want to try to jump right to the level of being their own band, the only guitar player covering everything.
Sure.
I say the best thing to do is be a side man and get the learning in how to play with people, how to support the player, because there's really art to playing rhythm.
Oh, yeah.
Tell you the truth, if I had a gig where all I did is play rhythm, I'd be totally cool with that because I love playing rhythm. You're playing it 75% of the time, man. So you got to fill it out, and there's an art to being in a trio too. But learning how to play with, how to not get in the way of the keyboard player, where his notes are so it doesn't jumble up, how to support the guitar player when he's doing his solo, make it sound better and exciting. And then listening to him, how he's playing rhythm. So I learned a lot off Bobby, the way he played rhythm. I learned a lot off the drummer that showed me how to do a proper Texas shuffle. That's got its own thing. So I was a sideman for Bobby for a couple years, and then I jumped over to Junior Medlow and the Bad Boys, which is more of an R&B thing. We're doing more James Brown, doing some Sly and the Family Stone,
sure,
and a little bit more rock. And he would let me do some jazz because we had this really accomplished keyboard player, an older cat. It was like for the longest time until I was like probably almost 30 years old, I was always the youngest guy in the band.
Sure, yeah.
Always, And we started stretching out, and I was sort of giving a little bit, they let the tether go a little. I can get out and sort of explore things. And then after we were doing some gig, there was a gig, Bobby was late to a San Antonio gig, and I had to cover the first hour of the gig. And I've already been listening to a lot of Stevie, some of the bootleg tapes. All the guitar players had that Steamboat in the Beginning CD in Austin because it was a live show off the public radio station.
Oh.
So everybody had that tape. We all passed that tape
This
around.
is pre-Texas Flood? This is
This is from, they call it the In the Beginning show. It's the CD,
Okay.
But that's everybody knows it as the Steamboat show. The club was Steamboat, and that was that show. And so I started learning all these things. It's like, how's he getting those tonal changes? Oh, he's switching the pickups. How's he doing this? Learning how to do a show, open up with an uppercut. Just learning a lot from Stevie and then learn a lot from other cats. Sorry if I'm talking fast. I get excited when I talk about this.
That's cool.
But, and then, so I was listening to that, working with it. And so I was like, okay, it's me playing trio. I've got to start pulling out some of this stuff. And sure enough, I had the place rocking. Everybody was up dancing. I was like, maybe I can do this. I could do a trio thing.
Right on.
And so I still stayed with Bobby for a little bit longer. Then I got in Junior Medlow and the Bad Boys. And then I thought, maybe it's time to, there was a club opened up called the Black Cat Lounge down on 6th Street. And the guy would want original music. He was trying to be really different and raw. And I said, I'll bring the group in. And so I started doing the trio. And this is before I even sang. Mm-hmm. But really, when I broke out in a trio, I was still doing a lot of jazz fusion and stuff. I was doing all that stuff. You know, playing some other quick stuff, you know, Chicory of Spain, playing some Coltrane, you know, playing the Moment's Notice. I really used to play good back then. And some other stuff.
So what year are we talking about? What are you thinking?
We're talking, okay, I got in Bobby Mack probably 81. I think I got Bobby Mack in 81 because I was 80. And then 81, I was with Bobby probably up to about 83. And then I got Junior Medlow about 84. And I think it was about 87 when I started branching out and doing my own thing.
Okay, so that's a long time in Austin. I mean, to kind of develop, but like you're saying, that's what you need to do. I mean, or it's a very good idea.
Yeah, it's a great. What's good about it? I mean, of course, there's petty jealousies going on. We always have this competitive, everybody, but there's still a great community of musicians there, and you get in your little cliques, you know. And I was with some cats, and I was always gravitating towards the older players, and I was very fortunate to play with older, much experienced players that were really accomplished players and learning off them. So I was always playing at that kind of level.
Yeah, I mean that helps to learn from.
Yeah. Because it inspires you. It makes you want to play to their level, you know. And I think the gig that really where I planted my flag in Austin, like I have arrived, or I'm putting the town on notice that I am in town, is Bobby Mack. You know, he got an opening gig at this famous club called Liberty Lunch.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like teasing me. He knew what kind of guitar player I was like. He goes, and yeah, I got this opening slot for this guy named Alan Holdsworth. And I was like, you are kidding. We are not opening up for Holdsworth. He goes, no, we got it. We're opening up for Holdsworth. So this is the IOU tour. This is 84 we got that gig. And we were doing the song Change My Mind, the Tyrone Davis song, Change My Mind. And I laid out this beautiful solo. And at the very end, it was really an easy thing, like an exercise. But I was just doing, it goes from, you know, C to D minor. So I'm just doing the arpeggio of C major arpeggio, then D minor arpeggio. And after the end of that solo, you know, you've got nothing but jaded guitar players in the audience.
Just watching, going, what?
And so they just freaked out. The whole place erupts like it. And I remember some of the guitar players that were well known in town came up to me after the gig, goes, who are you again? How old are you? I think I was 21 at that. Yeah, I was 21 at that gig. So that's when everybody took notice of me in town.
And is that when, would that have been like when you would meet like the Sexton Brothers or
I saw Charlie when he was 15 at the Continental Club.
Yeah.
And he was so awesome. I mean, he was doing this one thing. This is when the Continental Club was a real dive. When Stevie played in it, he played there every Thursday.
Oh, wow.
You know, you can go see him and people be bitching, $4? I can't believe it. I drink here all the time. I'm not paying $4. Well, anyway, and I got to see him in the Continental Club. I could have seen him a bunch more, but I didn't. But hey, I still got to see him, you know, in a small club. But yeah, I saw Charlie playing. Can't remember who he was playing with, but he was like he got up as a guest and he was just walking around doing these licks, and then he did this one cool thing where he took the guitar and he slid the strings on the back of a chair, just like, and it was just like the coolest thing you'd ever seen. A 15-year-old pulling that off. It's like, oh my God, I have seen the future. Look at this kid.
Wow.
Yeah, Charlie was incredibly talented for his age, extremely precocious musically. And so, I mean, then he had those chiseled looks, and the Beat So Lonely album came out.
Yeah.
And it made it big in Japan. Deal. Yeah, and that was it. He was on his way.
Right on. So when does the first Chris Duarte Group record come out?
Okay, the first record I got recorded on was Bobby Mack and Night Train.
Yeah,
that was the first one, and I'm 18 years old.
Wow.
And if you can get it, the name of the album is called Peace of My Heart. And if you turn the record over, I couldn't make it to the photo sessions down at the studio or anything. So it's like this this sort of clumsily awkward-looking picture taken at a rehearsal studio. You can see this blown insulation kind of on the back behind me and the splatter thing. And I'm just standing there going, hey, you know, looking silly. But I was 18 years old, you know, when that album came out.
Right, wow.
So that was the first
recording.
Yeah, and which was a big thing. You know, that's like wow, I'm going in a studio. I'm actually going to get put on a record.
With the blues guy.
And real... you press play, and that's me coming out of the speakers. You know, you can believe it.
That's a big feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, that was a big thing, and then I made a record with a guy Ben Blank at SRS Studios that was down on Guadalupe Street. I don't know what's going on. That was a long time ago, but I made a record called Chris Duarte and the Bad Boys, which you can find on eBay. And the price of the record goes anywhere from $20 to $200.
Right.
Depends, yeah, because people bring them out once in a while.
Was that self-released or was there a label?
Yeah, that was self-released.
Wow.
Yeah, this is when you were just doing that, and I paid, you know, there was a record company in Nashville, Tennessee, CRT Records. They were pressing them. This is when, you know, records were records, you know. CDs really hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, you needed to have a record. Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you know, had friends help me with the artwork and got it all put together, and I only made 1,000. I paid for 1,000, and back in the day, they would put an additional 10% in for breakage, which might happen during shipping.
Sure.
So it was 1,100 albums, and that's all that was made of that album.
Wow. Know? You never did a repress?
No, never did a repress.
Fair enough. When does the first official...
the Chris Duarte group?
Yes.
That record came out when what happened is in the year 1991.
Yeah.
Probably 90. I started playing a lot with John Jordan, this bass player that was playing in the Vanguards, and we had struck up a really good friendship because he would freak out when I come in the Black Cat, and I was like, okay, we're going to play this Hendrix song, like Hear My Train A-Comin'. Okay, now we're going to turn around and play Moment's Notice. We're going to do that. And he was like, I can't believe this guy's playing Hendrix, then Coltrane, he's doing that. And he was just like freaked out. So we struck up a real conversation.
Yeah, but he was into it.
He was way into it. He was like, I want to be with that.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I want to be with.
It's a good mix.
Where he's going. And he was extremely talented bass player, super musical. And we started playing together. Then we had this drummer that was a friend of ours by some other associates, Jeff Hodges. And we got with this booking agent that booked us. I would do Arlington, Texas at a place called Fatso's. Then I would play Liberty Drugs in Norman, Oklahoma. Then I'd play The Bottleneck in Lawrence, Kansas. Yeah. And then I would play the Zoo Bar up in Lincoln, Nebraska. Yeah. And we do that like every 3 months. And then slowly by word of mouth, it started to spread. So then I started to get further going to the east and then further started going to the west. I started playing Colorado. So that was probably around 89. So around when 91 rolled around, we got in with a booking agent called Pet Sharks. That was Cleve Hattersley, who was an original member of Greasy Wheels.
Not familiar.
There's this iconic album cover that Jim Franklin did. He's an iconic illustrator. So
okay, anyway, I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
Greasy Wheels. And he started booking us. It was him and his friend, God, it slips my mind right now, but Cleve, he was like my first real manager.
U.S. booking?
Yeah, U.S. booking. And there was one year in 91, we would all crowd into John had a Caprice Classic, like a 78 Caprice Classic.
Beautiful.
Yeah, black with a white hard top on it. And we would get in there. The trunk was like, super huge. And we would take out the back seats. We can put in the drum kit and all that stuff. And the drummer was a small guy. He'd sit in the back seat. And then we would sit in the front seat. Mm-hmm. And we would tour the country. We toured the country like that for maybe about 3 or 4 months. And then I got a station wagon. Then we started touring I think it might have been an Oldsmobile station wagon. It was like a late 70s.
Sure.
Big old thing.
Nice.
Big boat. And we started touring in that. And then when we started, 1 year we played getting close to over 200 gigs. And most of them were on the road. Probably 150 were on the road. And we started turning into real road dogs. And we were playing all the time. And then we got a gig at Buddy Guy's Legends.
Yep.
We were playing up there. And Buddy Guy's Legends, it was a super huge crowd. Word had gotten around, but Buddy Guy's already had pretty much a built-in crowd too.
Yep.
So, but the place would get super packed. And so Buddy was on the Silvertone label. And the A&R guy from Silvertone just happened to call the night I was playing. And he, talking because the manager that runs the club, because that was Buddy's club, he was saying, we got to do this with Buddy and do that. Oh, by the way, who's playing tonight? This guy goes, oh man, you ought to hear this guy. This guy's Chris Duarte. He's from Texas, real aggressive guitar. Man, he's really good, really packs him in. People are excited about him. He was like, interesting. So he flew down for that gig to see me play. And this is Michael Tedesco.
Wow.
He's retired from the company now, but he was probably like in his late 30s, maybe his early 40s when he saw us. And I wasn't even 30 yet. I think I was about 28 or 29.
Was this your
no,
first?
It was 93. It was 93.
Was this your first time playing in Chicago?
No, it was probably the second time.
Okay.
Second time, because the first time went good, and that's why the manager was saying, oh yeah, we got
him back,
yeah.
Wow.
Got him back. And we were getting up around and stuff because we were always playing. And we had Brandon Temple at the time, who is on Texas Sugar. We had him in the band at the time. I mean, I've known Brandon since I did a gig with Brandon when he was 17 years old, because I used to have this house gig at a place called Jazz Louisiana Kitchen on 6th Street. And we had to play standards and jazz. Mm-hmm. And the bass player I had, Evan Arredondo, really good bass player. He goes, yeah, I know this drummer we can get. He's young, but we'll get him. And so he comes down. He's got his whole family because he couldn't get in the club, but he's got his whole family because that's how Texas law works. Your family parents with you can get in there.
Parents there,
And so we played with him. We're playing through all the standards. It's like, who is this guy?
It's like
this
Tony
guy,
Williams. What the fuck
exactly.
is this?
This guy is really good. So that's when I first met him. He was probably 17. So I've known him. One of the oldest relationships I've had with a musician. But anyway, so we're out playing. We're really turning heads because we're playing real aggressive, really right in your face. And we called it punk blues at the time. Mm-hmm. Wearing cut off t-shirts, the sleeves are cut off, holy jeans and stuff, Chuck Converse, high tops and stuff, just long hair, a mane of hair, just wild and unbridled and everything.
Like Austin, right?
Yeah. And so Michael Tedesco saw us, and then he came back and chatted with us, and then it was I think within 3 months, I was signed to Silvertone.
Wow.
The lawyers got together, and then it was signed. And this is back in the day when they were given advances. They were still, It wasn't a lot advance, but it was still pretty good.
It was like a 3-record thing, or was it
It was a one record. I think it was a one record with options.
Sure.
Then it was options after that. And of course, if you do good in one record, they'll we'll sign you for the next one. Did good. So of course, the first record was Texas Sugar. We flew out to Seattle. We met Dennis Herring. Dennis Herring came to a gig in Kansas City in 94. Came out to a gig in Kansas City in 94. Saw 2 shows. We had a 2-night stand at a place called Night Moves. He took notes. He's from our whole sets both nights, and he said, I think these are the songs we should put on the record. And so we flew out to Seattle. That's where he was living, because Dennis Herring was like on the ground floor of the grunge scene.
Sure.
And Dennis Herring was probably at this time maybe just a few years older than me, maybe about 6-7 years older than me. Adorable guy. In fact, he did the last record. I was so thrilled to work with him again, because I hadn't worked with him since 2000. So anyway, he looks just the same. It's hilarious. But I mean, he just had this way of doing things and the way of splicing together. I mean, some of those solos on Texas Sugar are kind of spliced together. It's like, okay, I like this section really good. In fact, C-Butt Rock is like probably from 3 or 4 sections. And even when I heard it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of quirky, but that's me playing, so I can copy that. I can do that.
I was going to say, I mean, so you had to kind of like go back and learn those solos
that
edited.
He put together.
Wow.
A comp solo, as they say in studio.
Okay. I did not know that. That's interesting.
But but I mean, he recorded us raw, and then the song Shiloh that's on Texas Sugar, that's just a instrumental minor blues. We just walked into the studio because we recorded it live. It wasn't like how I eventually learned how to do records where you just get the drum and bass tracks and you do a scratch guitar, and then you start, putting you get the skeleton, and then you start putting the muscles on it and fleshing out the whole song. Yeah. But he recorded us live because Dennis felt the feeling and the groove of our music is best conveyed in a live atmosphere.
I mean, that's probably not wrong. I mean, as fun as layering is, the live show is
the rawness of it and the energy. And what we were in Bad Animal Studios in Seattle, which was Heart Studio.
Oh yeah, okay.
They ran it, and they had just gotten the new digital room, where it was like the very beginnings of like Apple Pro Tools was just coming out, and Dennis had like one of the prototype things because he had that, that little tower that was thin, and you had that one screen, and you can only do one track at a time.
Yeah.
At Pro Tools, we had that when we were editing.
Wow.
And so he would build the solo on that little thing. He'd look at a little screen, like, I don't know, 4x4 or whatever it was, and then he'd go to the tape and cut the tape because it was still recorded on tape.
Yeah.
So we were doing that. We were still in the old studio, which had an old Allen and Heath board that supposedly, I think Fleetwood Mac, was it Rumors that went through that board? No, Rumors was a LA studio.
Yeah.
Tower of Power.
Oh, wow.
What Is Hip, that went through that board.
Nice.
Yeah. And so we put that all down. Dennis does a thing where he can't have you around when we're doing the vocals. Auto-tune was not out, so I'd have to do like 3 or 4 runs. He'd comp the vocals together. And Dennis just had these ears. Well, anyway, Shiloh, getting back to that, we just walked in the studio because we had these huge walls of foam around us to prevent mic bleed over and stuff. I mean, there's a little bit you can hear, but we just went in there and started playing it. And Dennis records everything. He doesn't care what it is. He catches everything because you never know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And so we started playing it. You can hear the tone of the mic settings change, even on the song, how it starts off, and then you'll hear it on the album.
Yeah.
But after we finished playing that song, Dennis is laying like on the couch inside the listening room or the console room, and he's like, "You're going to have to kill me to not put that on the record." That is going on the record. Because we only played that song one time that whole session.
Wow.
And and that is like an unedited version. That's just how it is right there.
I mean, sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, when fire catches, you gotta get
it. Yeah, that's amazing. I wanted to go back a little bit, just talking about the earlier Austin days, because we had talked a little bit in the car. Did the scenes mix much? Like we were talking about Butthole Surfers, or maybe like Scratch Acid or the Dicks or something like that. I mean, like, was that just like its own thing? And then like you guys doing the punk blues stuff? I mean, did people like? Was everybody friends? I guess.
Yeah. Everybody was friends. I mean, of course, like I said, there was that competitive nature of all of us. But I try to tell people how Austin was back in the early to mid '80s. You had over 200 clubs that had live music 7 nights a week, all different kinds of music.
Yeah.
You can go out and hear whatever's going on. That's when you had, Alejandro Escovedo. That's when he played with the True Believers. That was the group he played. Let's see, who are some of the other bands besides, the Butthole Surfers and all those guys. You had the blues guys down at Antone's, because Antone's was originally down on 6th Street.
Oh, okay.
Then it moved. I went and saw Ray Charles in 1980 or 81. That's when he moved the club out into North Austin off Anderson Lane, and it was an old Safeway. So it had lots of hard surfaces, the big glass, like an old Safeway. That's what it was.
Yep.
And so I saw Ray Charles, out there.
Wow.
A long time ago. And then he moved it to Guadalupe Street, and that's when I started playing it, when it moved down to 33rd and Guadalupe Street.
Okay.
And it was like, it used to be an old country thing, It sort of had the Western motif of the bar and stuff, still some wagon wheels around and stuff, but he sort of turned it into the blues club. And that's where I started playing with Bobby Knack.
Was that Antone's, like his focus was
yeah, it was mainly blues. It was mainly blues. I mean, he'd kind of freak out when I'd come in, because I was like I was like the contrarian.
The loud guys here.
Yeah, the contrarian. I had the long hair. I had all the pedals, in front of me. At the time, I probably had, 5 or 6 pedals, whereas all the blues cats, they had no
straight
pedal.
into the amp.
They had a super reverb. That was the amp of choice of the blues cats back in the day. Super reverb. Whereas opposed to Stevie, he was playing Marshall combos, and he had some reverbs, and he had twins. He had whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah, but Stevie was playing a Marshall combo for a while. Not the head event, the combo, the 212 combo. He was playing that for a while.
Well, you mentioned Bobby Mack. Did you get to see a lot of those? Because that's kind of like the end of maybe I wouldn't say like the first generation of blues guys, but the big influences on 60s rock and roll. I mean, that's kind of like you're catching about the tail end of a lot of those dudes.
Yeah. Like I said, all the cats that I got to see, We also opened up for Albert Collins.
Oh, yeah.
Back then. And what was amazing, because I'd hear the albums, and this was my first time seeing him, so I'm probably maybe 19 years old. And when he plugged in and he played those first notes, it was like, oh my God, he sounds just like the record. Because you can't believe, you think it's some studio magic that gets that biting tone, because nobody had that tone. And he starts playing, it's like, oh my God, that's for real. Yeah. I saw Buddy Guy back before he was just, struggling.
Still
when he
working. Yeah.
He was playing a big old red 335. This is probably way back. Probably 82. I was standing in the office after we had played a show opening up at Antone's. Let's see, Robert Plant walked in. He walked in like the door. I was like, couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, that's Robert Plant. I got to jam a little with Dr. John back in the office. Let's see, who else? Hubert Sumlin, like I said, Sumlin was living in town. He'd come up and sit in with us because we had a house gig every Wednesday for like months down at Antone's. Bobby Blue Bland's guitar player. What is his name? Not Wayne Brake. Why am I saying Wayne Brake? That cat, I can't. They'll come to me. But he lived in Austin. James Cotton wasn't playing. He was a little after Antone's already moved to 5th Street. But the first 5th Street, because now it's on 5th Street again. Gary Clark's he's part owner of the club.
Oh,
now.
wow. I didn't realize that.
Yes. Yeah. Gary Clark's got a decent-sized footprint in Austin, but it's the positive thing. It's not a bad thing. But, this is when Clifford was alive. And like I said, the club was mainly blues. It was pretty much, there wasn't any, new sort of rock group playing there or nothing. No, this was all blues. Every night, all the time,
But then you would venture over to things like.
I got off the tangent. Yes, I was the contrarian, walking in with my long hair. I didn't have my hair slicked back in a pompadour. I didn't have a vintage, super reverb. I had kind of a vintage amp. Wasn't really vintage because it's probably like a mid '80s amp, a Fender 75. That's what I play with. But I put this like Tapco equalizer on top of it to get a better tone out of it. And I had like 3 or 4 pedals, and and I was doing my crazy ass thing, and Clifford would walk in, he'd see me with those pedals on the board, and he'd kind of shake his head. He goes, I still like you, Chris. I still like what you're doing, man. but he tried to tell me, and then he also had, him and Bobby were having like conversation like at a late, early morning breakfast, and Clifford had mentioned, what I like? Bands that all dress the same, it's a show. So all of a sudden, now we're all dressing the same in the body in that train. We had this one outfit where we had like black sort of waiter pants and pink t-shirts, like the Romantics or something. Wow. And we were playing like that, all of us dressed the same. He put out a little, we'd call us up, goes, this is the uniform.
What we're doing today.
Yeah, exactly. This is the gig. But yeah, it taught me a lot, I mean, learning sort of the ins and outs of show business.
Professionalism.
And being the entertainment part of it, because there is part of it. You want to be a little bit of eye-candy. You want to be something interesting and something amusing, something entertaining, while you're watching it.
So you were kept busy then playing any of the 200 clubs then? Like, as you were, like, while you were there, like, it was just kind of like night by night, you might have to jump around to places, or?
I'd say, I'd say the clubs that I was playing at the time probably was about maybe 10 that I would play on a regular basis. That would be the Hole in the Wall. There was a place called Pearls. There was the Black Cat Lounge. There was Jazz Louisiana Kitchen. There was a club out on the lake called Carlos and Charlie's. And I know there's more.
Cannibal Club.
Was it? The Cannibal Club? No, I don't think I played the Cannibal Club. We would play Stubbs when Stubbs first got to town, because he was in Lubbock. That's where he started. More Mr. Stubblefield, Ike Stubblefield. And then he moved to Austin, and he was like off I-35 between Airport Boulevard and 38th Street. And it was in this emptied out, this restaurant that was built with this old Ramada Inn.
Oh, okay.
And that was the first place.
Wow.
And he would have sit-ins, and it was always a requisite that if you were playing the jam, Ike would get up and sing a song, and he would always sing either St. James Infirmary or God, I can't remember the other song, but he would always do these 2 songs, And Ike was just the greatest guy.
Wow.
Just what a guy, man. And then he got his barbecue sauce and he started running.
Sure.
And then somebody took the name after he passed away. They took the name, and now it's still a successful club, which I did headline when things were going good, Texas Sugar, the outside stage.
Nice.
I remember that gig too because I pulled my van up to the stage to load in, and they had the snake out on the ground, and I ran over the snake. That sound company was pissed. Did you just break our snake? Did you break that snake? They were like so mad.
I mean, not on purpose.
Exactly. Really? You put it out on the ground like that? So, of course, they start going through every channel and make sure it's all good. And fortunately, the thing was good, but I just remember how incredibly mad they were.
Not a good moment, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We were all sussed out by the end of the show, but it was a little, didn't get off to a good foot.
Have you ever left Austin on a tour and come back in a club as a completely different name?
No, I mean, I never did that. We did one tour a couple times where Austin was like in the middle or like in the top part of the thing, and we would treat it just like a road gig. I mean, we wouldn't stay in a hotel, but we'd stay in our house, and then boom, it's like get up in the morning, boom, you're gone, you finish the rest of the tour.
Right.
We had that happen several times.
Mm-hmm. How does traveling outside of the States, does that work out pretty well?
I'm very fortunate for playing my music for like over 30 years now. Texas Sugar is over 30 years old, I think. Yeah, next year will be 30 years old. And, this year it was 30 years old. And so I've been doing my thing, playing mainly my music, my originals. I haven't had to be a cover band. I play a couple of covers.
Of course.
But I haven't had to, pepper my set list with covers, So it gives people sort of grab on. No, it's like, no, you're just going to have to take me as I am. This is it.
Right.
This is all you got tonight. But I was very fortunate that I happened to strike a niche, and I've managed to hold on to a lot of my fans. Of course, my fans have aged over the years.
Yeah.
And, it's shrunk a little. And then your relevancy, of course, shrinks if you don't have the great album thing. It's just part of the business.
That is how it works, unfortunately.
You can't get down about it. It's just the way it goes,
Right.
If you can stay on top of the mountain, more power to you, man. But, hey, I'm still struggling. I'm still making a living out of it. I don't have a day gig. Haven't had a day gig since I was 24 years old.
Do you get the call for hired gun work much?
I wanted to be that so much, but I just didn't get that call. And I wondered if it was like, he's just not that diverse enough. I think they wanted somebody that can really fit into something. I think I was too much of Chris. At the end of the day, if you get Chris, it's gonna be me. But I mean. And in other words, that sounds silly to me to say that. It's like, if I want Eddie Van Halen, I'm going to get Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
If I want Chris Duarte, I'm going to get that. But it just, the call never came up.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. What, is there any new music, anything that even old music, what's been doing it for you?
What's been kind of trying is, when you're young, you've got that camaraderie between your beginning bandmates, and it's like the Three Musketeers, all for one and one for all, and you stick together. But then when the complexities and the business and the responsibilities that you take on as you get older, it sort of frays that friendship a little. When you start splitting up publishing rights and stuff on records.
Sure, yeah,
and who deserves this credit and who gets this, and it's not the egos or who's the guy in the front. It's mainly the business aspects, and that could sort of fray.
The business
things.
sucks. I mean, it's the business. The money part of anything sucks. But what I was asking is, like, is there any new music that you're hearing that is doing anything for you?
Oh, that's flying. That's blowing up my skirt.
Yeah.
Some cats, there are some guys I really like. Let's see. Soul Coughing's not a new group, but I was...
You were jamming that a little bit?
I'm way into Soul Coughing.
Did you see the reunion tour?
Man, I didn't see it because I saw... Okay, I had never seen... It was funny because I was actually on Monterey International. That was the same booking agent as Soul Coughing. And I was like, God, if I had known they were on the same thing, I would have wanted to do some shows together. Fat chance that would have happened because they're too mixed, but it would have been cool. But, Soul Coughing, of course, broke up because of issues they had between the band. So when I moved to Atlanta for 10 years,
oh, wow.
Michael Doty was doing like a solo thing with like a cello player or something. And so I went and saw it. So I was super excited to see him. I was like, oh my God, I finally get to see this guy. I've been a fan of Soul Coughing. But this was when he was the phase, like, don't even mention the name of Soul
Coughing. Talk about it. Yeah.
I'm not even going to play that song. It was like Voldemort, you know.
Yeah.
The band that we shall not name.
Yeah,
you know?
I get you.
And so I was laughing with him when I bought his book, the Junkie book that he put out, and his record. I was trying to tell him in code that, you know, I play Screenwriter's Blues is like a big song in my set list. I play that song. I used to play Screenwriter's Blues, Sugar Free Jazz, Blue Eyed Devil. I tried to play St. Louise.
Wow.
I tried to play all those songs, you know, but I just couldn't get the drummers to get that thing going.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so it was funny standing there with him, but I was like, man, I really would have loved to hear Soul Coughing, but I dig it where he's coming from. Man's got to have his position to stand on. So like the next year it comes out, Michael Doty's hitting the road. He's playing all the Soul Coughing. So I was like, okay, money talks.
Yep.
I was like, gosh damn it, Bob.
Yeah. I think he was holding out as long as he could.
Yeah.
It was like, fuck.
And then I see like a YouTube video of him doing Screenwriters. And fortunately, you know, the guy cleaned up. I'm glad he got it. But sometimes some of us, you know, when we clean up, we kind of balloon up and something like that. You know, it's different things come into your life. And when he was doing it, it just looked like he didn't have the passion when he was doing it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, do I want to go see Soul Coughing? But I was working when that tour was going on.
Sure.
I would, if I was close to a town, I would have gone and seen that because.
You just said clean up. I mean, was that an issue for you? Did
Oh
you,
yeah, I was a dope head for good.
Wow.
God. I mean, the times when I was touring at the beginning days,
yeah,
and I'd pick up the habit at home, and then when I go out, I would just go cold turkey. Oof. So those first couple gigs.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah.
My bass player would go, yeah, you'd have to tape Chris to the mic stand to keep him standing up.
Oh,
but no, I'd pull it off. It was funny. When the show was going, I was fine.
Uh-huh.
You know, I was playing. But right when the music stopped,
well, yeah, it's the other 22 hours that they're doing.
Exactly.
It's like, what the fuck do you do? Like, yeah. So was that something that was picked up like during the Bobby Mack days, or was that like it was like you got some success and you were like, oh fuck, how do I stay away from
it? Let's see. It probably happened, I think, probably at the latter end of the Junior Medlow days. Probably like in the late, probably 89, 90, somewhere around there, I started picking up. Because, you know, Coltrane's like my number one guy, you know. And so I thought, well, what the hell? And so when I started doing it, I thought, man, I could do my scales for hours on this stuff and practice for hours. And I thought something. But then, because at the time, I was just doing a little bit here, a little bit there, maybe on the weekend.
Right.
But then it got to be the point where my body started, I built up a habit.
Sure.
And I just needed it to be normal, you know. And then, of course, I know that's another big reason that the elephant that I didn't mention in the room, maybe why I didn't get that call in the studio.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's
like, well, I don't know how Chris is going to be when he shows
Who is he today? I don't know.
Right, exactly.
Like, yeah, I could see that.
But, you know, that's
what do you do?
Exactly. That's how my life was back then.
It's not, it's like, it's a story. It's a thing that happens. It's like, it's hard to say no.
Yeah, and
at a certain point.
And if anything, if there's any kind of silver lining in this, I was a high functioning junkie is what I was. I still managed to stumble my career forward. I want to say it was meteoric, but I mean it was when Texas Sugar came out, that was, I got to admit, that first year with Texas Sugar out, that was quite a ride.
Right.
You know, because I really wasn't doing it that much, but I was still doing it when I got home. But when I was out on the road, I was always clean, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And watching, it got to the point, I mean, a lot of groups you can tell when you're at a weekend because you've got your bigger crowds. It got to the point where you couldn't tell what was a weekend because every single night the place
was doing great.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I played Green Bay. I was up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I couldn't believe it. I've been, I followed football. I've been a kid, Skins were my team back in the day because I lived in D.C. when I was young. When you adopt your teams, when you're like 6 or 7, I was living in D.C. at the time. So the Skins were always my team. So I knew about about the Packers. Everybody knew about that. And so I couldn't believe it. I was playing in Green Bay, and I kept thinking, this little town has an NFL team? Really? it's like as big as Dubuque, you know? It's like, this has an NFL, a famous NFL team?
Where the fuck do I find some smack here? Fuck.
Exactly.
Fuck.
But the club was packed, and that's I think when it dawned on me, is like, yeah, something's going on. Because I'm playing like where I would have never thought I was going to play, and here it is. It's packed. You know,
it's cool that to have that kind of success. It just seems it is so strange that it's often paired with, well, now I've got to medicate.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Like this great thing is happening, and
then what happened too was I won the Guitar Player Readers Poll, you know, which was a big thing back. I won the Best New Artist, which if I rattle off the players that have won that award, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eddie Van Halen, Yngwie Malmsteen, I think Adrian Belew, even though he'd been around forever, but I think it was when his Rhinoceros album came, the Rhino album came out. But those are the guys that had won that award. And who were the people underneath me? Joe Bonamassa was number 2, and Dave Matthews was number 3, which told you right there, because you don't really think, you know, Dave Matthews was a guitar player, but you didn't think,
about it as
like a vanguard
guy,
leading a thing. But that told you how many votes that he probably got to get in 3rd place. And I had asked, Guitar Player magazine told, you know, of course I knew the results early because they had to tell me, inform me before the magazine came out. And my Michael Tedesco, the A&R guy at Silvertone, said, "Oh, they told me you were a clear winner. It was, you know, there was no doubt you won by a decent margin."
Wow.
You know, and I'd actually opened up for Joe when he was in Bloodline in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know, and Joe was just an incredible player back then. He was like, I think 16 or 17. Just an incredible player.
Again.
He wasn't really singing. Yeah, Joe's a great player, man.
Yeah.
Joe's a great guy, man. He's doing really good things. I'm real happy for the cat.
Yeah, I mean, he's, you know.
Yeah, I know.
He does a thing. He does a thing, and a lot of people love it.
Yeah, it is. And you know, but you know, he's got a great voice. He does write great songs, and his playing sounds like Eric Johnson once in a while, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
I guess wrapping up, I wanted to say thank you.
Well,
for doing this.
So much,
I really appreciate
Aaron,
it.
For giving us this, bringing us this out. You know, I know I don't have strong places anymore, and I know sometimes I'm an economical risk sometimes, but I really do appreciate it because when it comes down to it, I just want to play.
I don't know if I would be doing this if I didn't take economical risks. Pretty familiar, to be honest. But you know, I love, like I was telling you, I grew up listening to what I believe to be good blues, and it's a type of music that is always going to kind of be at the base of a lot of stuff that I like. And so when I get to hear people play it well, it means a lot to me.
Thank you. And I know I love the traditional blues and I love playing it, but I throw in this quirky stuff.
You have to.
It's me, you know, it's my voice that I found.
Well, it's an interesting thing that I've I mean, I guess I've known it, but yes, there's the traditional blues, but if you came up listening to AC/DC and Van Halen and you know, Weather Report
Black
or whatever.
Sabbath, Weather Report.
You know, it's going to color what you do later. There's no way. And I didn't mean to prematurely end this, but I was gonna ask, like, when did you find your way back to jazz, or do you think it ever did it ever leave?
No, it never left me. Because I'm always trying to think of different ways to get through the chords, you know, and jump through them. You know, sometimes I take, you know, because I learned the Giant Step solo a long time ago, and you could see how he's spelling out the chords. He's arpeggiating them, or he's doing them in different sequences. You know, the 1, the 2, the 7, the 5, and then he's just staying right in the chord, you know, in that solo. And that's just like, that gives you a concept of how to play and stuff. And that's all I'm thinking when I'm playing. I'm basically thinking the triads.
Excellent.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, Chris, thank you very much for talking to me. I appreciate it.
I had a great time. I wish we could have talked more because there's still a ton of stuff I can talk about.
I can imagine you got some stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aaron.